Hello everyone, welcome back to CAMNES Studio. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the main elements, the basics regarding stratigraphy. As we know, that is the main concept, the main element in order to understand an excavation and organize its different parts. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, we are going to briefly take a look, as I said, to the main aspects related to stratigraphy. Don't be scared. Absolutely. Just the main principles. Then obviously you're going to have to study a little more to learn about the different nuances and how it actually works and how you can apply it to your excavation, to your strata. So, in the end, we're also going to try to do a little exercise together to better understand what we're about to learn together. Okay, so the first thing we have to understand is, like most things in archaeology, the stratigraphy concept comes, as you can imagine, from geology. It's something borrowed from that other discipline, which is strictly connected to archaeology, if we think about it. Obviously, geological stratigraphy, strata, are very, very large, and they can be even thin, but they occur over not centuries or millennia, but much more. I mean, glacier periods, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, if not millions of years. So we have to separate them. And as we will see, archaeological stratigraphy also involves human action. One step at a time. Okay, so what is the most important aspect here? As we said, it's stratigraphy. And in order to understand a stratigraphy, in order to lay out our stratigraphy with a understandable, readable, comprehensible method, we must rely on, everybody still is, as you know, on the matrix invented by Edward Harris in 1973. We have seen a video, here's a link, dedicated to the main excavation manuals, where I also presented the principles of archaeological stratigraphy by Harris, where he officially presented, which came out in 1979, he officially presented the matrix system. So take a look at that video, because there's also a link in the video description to download the book. It's completely free of charge in various languages. Very cool. Thank you, Edward Harris. Okay, so apart from that, I want to underline once again that we are going to use, again, like everybody else in the world when they're doing archaeology, the Harris matrix, which is a diagram that organizes the different layers of an excavation, the different actions, the different elements, as we will see. And in the book by Harris, we find 4 main laws connected to stratigraphy laws. They are probably going to appear quite obvious and redundant, but that's the base. We need this in order to build upon that, okay? Let's start. Law number 1, the law of superposition, where the layer on top is younger, it's more recent than the one below, which is older. Now, this is the norm, this is the rule, but as you can imagine, this does not happen always. A lot of times we can find a reversed stratigraphy. Like, as you can see in this image, something may occur, perhaps due to human intervention, but not always. It can also be a natural phenomenon that's just reversed the stratigraphy, where something more recent went below, beneath, under something which is chronologically older. So as you can imagine, we have to pay a lot of attention when we excavate. Because when we look at things on books, in videos like this, or drawings, everything seems very understandable, simple. But these are just examples. When you start excavating, especially when you don't have structures, you'll immediately understand that things are not that simple to interpret, to understand what is going on in that context. Because things are completely mixed, disturbed by animals, other humans, other natural elements that can happen, weathering. I mean, there's so many things that can happen in a single layer or in a multiple layers, in a whole series of layers in a context. So this, as the following laws, are just the basics, okay? The main aspect that we must keep in mind, but obviously there are dozens of examples where this law is not valid. But we have to start somewhere. That's why I want to mark this again, because it may seem strange. It's a law, so it has to be that way always. No, it's just the foundation. Then we have to check each time what is going on in every single situation. Let's proceed. Law number 2, the law of original horizontality. Very simply, a layer, actually we could call it a sediment, usually has a horizontal, a wide, instead of a vertical, horizontal display, layout, structure, okay? Again, this will change if there are interfaces, if there are other elements changing that when the sediment is forming or afterwards during time. So again, once again, this is just the rule. Things will change a lot when you're on site, okay? Let's proceed. Okay, law number 3, law of original continuity. Once again, very simple. The law says that a sediment normally has a tapered, a feather-like shape towards its edges, towards the end of that sediment. Regardless how it is structured, when it goes toward the end, it fades away, okay? It does not have an abrupt alt or a consistent, noticeable thickness, unless there is an interface, unless there is something disturbing it, interacting with it, which at that point is going to be a different type of situation, of context, of the matrix. But we're talking about normal circumstances, okay? Let's proceed. Law number 4, the law of stratigraphical succession. Once again, this is going to appear banal and trite, but it is fundamental, especially when it came out, to set these rules. And what does it say? It says that each layer comes after the one below and before the one above. Okay? Very simply. Yes, because, the layers have to be in contact somehow. They can also not be in contact, but other layers, other stratigraphic units are going to have an interaction and going to tie them all together, creating the context. So once again, this has to be clear that we have this situation in history, in the creation of the strata of a context. Okay, these are the main laws. One important thing I want to underline, I already said this in the beginning, we're talking mainly now of sediments, of layers that appear to be in the description as a natural formation. But we must absolutely take into consideration human action, okay? A stratigraphic unit, SU or US in other countries, in other languages, the terminology may change, but that is the main concept, always valid, always present. A stratigraphic unit is the result of an action. And an action can be something happening in nature, but also something done by man. Obviously, when I talk about nature, I'm also talking about animals and things like that. We have a distinction though. When human action takes place, it has a difference. There is a separation between natural causes and natural results. So we must bear this in mind because, in fact, the stratigraphy, the matrix, does change according to this. For example, something that usually in the beginning when you start to learn about the Harris matrix, the students have a little bit of difficulty to understand. It's a classic example, a pit. Okay, a hole in the ground. What is going to be defined in the Harris? What is going to be reduced and synthesized in the diagram? A lot of you correctly would say the filling. Maybe some of you would say the edges of the pit, but that's just a change of a layer to another. That's a layer that is holding the filling. That's another stratigraphic unit. But there's another one. There's a third one involved. We could say the container, what is inside the container, but also the action of excavating that pit. That's another stratigraphic unit. And that comes always before the filling, because you have to dig it. And then the filling occurs somewhere in time. But they are three distinct stratigraphic units. And already if you understand this concept, you're going to start to understand all the rest, I would say, of the Harris matrix. Okay, let's proceed. In the Harris matrix, we have three macroscopic relationships that govern more or less the whole diagram that Harris has framed, put into focus. The first one is no connection. I mean, between one stratigraphic unit. Not necessarily a layer, okay? As we said, it can also be a human action, a stratigraphic unit, whatever it is. One stratigraphic unit may have no connection with another. Hence, they're going to be drawn, they're going to be represented, separated, not connected one to another, obviously. The second main relationship, is superpositions. One layer is superposed to another. The one who stays below has a relationship with the one above, and vice versa. The superposition of layers of stratigraphic units. The third one is correlation. Two stratigraphic units that are not anymore in strict connection, where they don't have a superposition, but they did have a relationship in the past at some point. They have been, for example, separated or broken apart. So there's so many examples. In any case, these are the three. Okay, we're done. Now we're going to try to put some action here. We're going to do some practice, and we're going to try to look at a specific section, at a specific drawing where we have the different elements, the different strata, the different stratigraphic units, and we're going to try to do the matrix together. Okay, so let's start. As you can see here, we have an image, very simple, with a number of layers and also what appears to be something vertical. Probably we could read it as, for example, a wood beam inserted in the ground for some purpose. We don't care about which purpose. Okay, if you already starting to understand by looking at the different images, maybe you have already read something online, whatever is the reason, try to pause the video now and try to create your matrix based on this image that you're watching right now. Okay, are you ready? Let's start now to create the matrix together. After I believe you studied a little bit of the image, let's start from the bottom. It's easier this way. So at the bottom, as you can see, we have, I left the numbers. It's easier. A more complex training would be without numbers and trying to understand a little bit more better what is coming after, what is coming before. But don't be tricked by the numbers. They're not obviously going from 11 all the way to 1. Things are different from what they appear. That is why we're doing this exercise. Okay, so basic level, we are all sure on that. Level number 11. It has all the same color, so we can put our nice 11 at the bottom. As you can see, that's our first layer. Then something happens on top. What do we have? We have 9 and 10, as we can see, this white layer on top. Why do they have two numbers? You should know the answer. This is a correlation. They were once together, but now, at least in this drawing, something, we said a wood beam, has divided them, but they are clearly the same layer, and that's why we should put them correlated. So, as we can see, one next to the other. But if we want to be correct, we should give them two distinct numbers because they're not in connection anymore. Now, in real life, if it's a pole, it's connected behind, obviously, so it's easy to understand. But you never know what we're looking at. Maybe it's not a wood pole. Maybe it's a huge wall of a building and it ends right there. So let's just focus on the drawing so we can understand better. Okay, after 9 and 10, remember that we have this element, the vertical element, that clearly comes after, I can tell you this already from now, clearly comes after the normal deposits, the normal layers, the natural, not normal, the lateral layers that have created this context, okay? So we have to keep that in mind. That is something that happened afterwards. So after 9 and 10, what do we have? As we can see, somebody dug a pit in layer number 9, which we said is correlated to layer number 10. In any case, the pit occurs in this other layer, only in 9. So, what do we put on top of 9? We don't put 7, as we said before. I told you about this element of this example of the pit, which is very important. You must put the action of the cutting the pit, the cut, the human action. So, at that point, on top of 9, we're going to put 8, the cut. And on top of 8, we're going to put, according to what we can see in this drawing, number 7, the filling. On the other side, we have to go immediately to 4. But 4 is equal, as we can see, to 1. So at that point, what's on top of 7? 1. So we can put 1 and 4. Below 4, there's not going to be anything until we go all the way down to 10, as you can see in the diagram, which is forming slowly. Okay, at this point, we practically finished our layers. And what do we have? We have this center element, this vertical elements, sediment, wood. We said it's a wood beam, something resulting from a human intervention that created this. So at this point, what is the next element, the next stratigraphic unit that we have to put above 1 and 4? At this point, we're going to put number 5. Once again, the cut of the pit. And this, starting from this point on, involves both parts of these layers, okay? So 1 and 4 are going to go together to number 5, which is the cut of the pit. And what's in the pit? First of all, as we can see, the bottom obviously is the older part. We have a small sediment, so on top of 5 we're going to have 12, the first little sediment. Then what do we have? We have the wood beam. And why do we put the wood beam and not the other sediment, number 3, as you can see here? Well, very simply, because number 3 is clearly going on top number 2. Number 2 is something stiff. It's a piece of wood. So it's not accumulating. It's not becoming slowly a layer. No, it has been put and then soil has been added to keep it firm. This is already an interpretation because I'm saying this, but it's clear because 1 is a solid element which is touching 12, and next to it, on top, resting on top of it, well, not on top of it, but it's resting on it, is number 3. And that's why we're going to have 5, 12, 2, 3. And at the end, the top of our diagram, of our matrix, what do we have? As we can see, we have another artificial level created by man, a floor, which is located on top. It's closing off number 3, which means then, and also number 4, which means it's coming afterwards. And as we can see, it is going a little bit underneath. As you can see, this is just a teeny detail, but if you look at number 2, the wood beam is located a little bit diagonal like this. So we can clearly understand that the floor was built on it, once again, a little bit like number 3. And that is why it comes after number 2. doing the creation of the floor. And that's why number 6 is on top of our diagram. Now, some of you that are already understanding a little bit of this system may say correctly, but wait, but maybe number 6 was already there. Maybe number 2, the wood beam, broke number 6. And that's a very good observation, actually. That could have taken place, actually. Looking at this, we can exclude that, as I said, for this slight inclination, which somehow makes you understand that this floor is following that wood beam. No, we don't find a piece of floor broken, for example. Plus, on the other side, there's nothing. So, otherwise, that would have also been an indication of a fracture, of a breakage of the floor in order to put the wood beam. Plus, logically, we also have to keep in mind logical things in archaeology. The floor is something coming after you have set something that is going underground, because most probably this wood beam, according to the drawing, it may be not this way. It appears that the wood beam has built in order to go together with the floor, but that's already a further interpretation. Just from the graphical representation, we can understand almost certainly, not 100%, I must admit that, not 100%, but most probably that the floor comes after the insertion of the wood beam in the soil, for the reason I said before. Okay, I hope you didn't die in a corner because you're completely bored out from this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you understand everything I said. If you don't, please write your comments here below. Please send us a letter, an email at ask@camnes.org. This is our email address where we want to receive your questions. Any type of questions regarding archaeology, we're going to answer them in videos so we can somehow share these curiosities we all have. And what else can I say? Remember that understanding our past helps us to better explain what is happening in the present and also define our future. Thank you. Hi guys, if you want to discover more about archaeology and our ancient past from a different perspective, make sure to click on the CAMNES logo here below. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you will never miss an episode and join the archaeological community in search of the truth.